Okay, welcome to the That's Good Broncos podcast. Here on That's Good Sports, we have special guest Chad Jensen joining us from Mile High Huddle, the Huddle Up podcast. You probably have seen it on YouTube. And of course, the other guy, Will, who's always here.
Oh, hey. Yeah, what's up, guys? So
today, probably just going to mostly focus on Broncos news since we've covered all of the other NFL shit on the main channel this week. 66 total players opted out. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but in terms of football actually kind of happening, it's starting to feel real. WuanJames opts out for the Broncos. That was one that stung. The Bronco hats were for sale today on NFL.com or the Broncos website. And what else? What was the other thing? Oh yeah, Drew Lock is throwing to players at practice, and I'm sure we can make that into something, guys.
Dude, it's crazy. Now I love, of course, the MHH audience. I love all of you. It's crazy though. The smallest Drew Lock nugget, dude, moves the needle. I just shared an article that had like 50 words in it. And, hey, look at Drew Lock dropping dimes at Broncos camp. And it just went. That's how desperate people are for football in the Mile High City and how much hype Lock has.
People are ready. Well, but that's like – just take away the fact that, like, sports didn't happen for the last 5 or 6 months. Usually at this time, people are ready for any sort of football anyway. So – compound that and it's probably even crazier. Like usually August is like a crazy busy month for me in terms of like any sort of preseason nugget or news. People are like, fuck yeah, I want to see that. Want to see that fourth string running back ran for 70 yards on one play. And I always call those guys Hall of Famers and then they get cut. So
today would have been the Hall of Fame game too.
Yes.
And sadly, we're missing out on one of the most entertaining preseason games of the year. Not because of the field, like a few years ago.
Yeah. We're not going to play on this, guys. This
other reasons,
sucks.
Sadly. Yeah, and the Hall of Fame inductions, which are always kind of fun. I don't know. I go back and forth on them.
Right. Oh, yeah. The other thing was the Broncos ownership court date got moved a year.
Yeah.
So Joe Ellis versus the oldest Bolins. We got to wait till 2021 for probably the most boring Broncos story, but also the most important one that will affect the team for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Drew Lock throwing a pass to Jerry Jeudy is going to get it's going to drive big ad revenue. But when you find out who's owning the Broncos for the next 50 years, you're not going to get a click. I'm sorry.
Chad, what are your thoughts on the Broncos right now? Like, what's your feeling about them heading into whatever this 2020 football season is going to be?
Dude, I honestly think they're a dark horse. I like that they're playing kind of a middle of the road schedule. I think Drew Lock is the truth. I got to take off I think I can say that objectively, even taking off the orange colored glasses. What we saw from him last year. There's so many different facets of that 5-game sample size that I was impressed by him and the it factor that he brings to the table. And Fangio, I think, kind of got his feet underneath him by the time the Broncos got down the stretch last year, kind of figured out from an operations perspective how to keep this thing rolling and how to call plays from the sideline and just the pecking order with the coaches. And now you bring in Pat Shurmur, you bring in Mike Shula, who are both QB whisperers in their own right. And I think this is a team that could really surprise some people. Now, with all the bad juju the Broncos have built up over the years, would I be completely shocked to see this team kind of, step on their you-know-what? No, but I really don't think it's going to happen. I think this is, like John Elway said in December, I think he was onto something saying we bounced off the bottom.
Do you have any concern with the new offensive coordinator and the new quarterback coach in a shortened offseason with 0 preseason games? Do you think it's going to take them a little while to ramp up?
Oh, yeah. It's going to have an impact, but shoot. I mean, the Tim Tebow offense was pretty basic and batten down, but they didn't have an off season that year. And that was the lockout year. And, they figured out how to kind of, hit the ground running and make some hay. So I think they're not going to be quite as far along when September rolls around as they would have been, but I don't think it's going to be that drastic of an impact. I think for most teams, even the Tom Brady's in Tampa where he's a transplant, I think most teams are going to be playing some sloppy football, relatively speaking, through that first quarter of the season, and the Broncos included. But, that's why I got to tip my cap to Drew Lock for trying to put together, even against the recommendation of the NFLPA, putting together those off the field, away from the facility workouts, any reps he can get with the new guys. And
well, when you saw Brady doing it, you're like, shit, everybody's got to do it. Everybody. I was thinking that same thing today, in that like a lot of teams are probably in a situation that puts their whatever they were planning on doing, it has turned into a bit of a shit show, and they're going to be figuring out a lot of it as that first month of the season, sort of progresses. And so you looked at teams that have or who had like the most consistency on the off season and were already good last year. So like it sucks. The Chiefs are probably set up, better than any team in the NFL, next to maybe the Ravens, also in a good spot. And then like the Saints are, I think, in a pretty decent spot, like in the NFC, where they're getting a bunch of veteran guys back who are good, and there's not a lot of change up there. And so you assume those teams are going to look really good early, and then, any team can maybe start to, I don't know. I'm hoping like some weird team just turns out to be really good that nobody expected by November.
I think the Broncos will be one of those teams. Like for a lot of people in Denver and Mile High, fan club, it won't be that big of a surprise. But I've been running every freaking aggregated story across the internet that has to do with the Broncos because of how dry this offseason has been and just nothing going on. And by and large, from the national perspective, the national media, they're sleeping on the Broncos with the exception of one or two guys I could think of, like Colin Cowherd and shit, I already forgot who the other one is. But it's
probably Kay Adams because she wore that Broncos shirt and everybody was like, oh yeah.
Broncos indeed.
Broncos. Oh, wait, hold on. I got something for that.
Oh, boy.
So I forgot that I had this because I've been meaning to, like, do something with it. This is a real rare gem. So
I know it's coming.
It's the Denver Broncos and damn it, the New England Patriots.
Cursed.
Some fucking Walmart misprint. Although it says NFL apparel official, but I'm pretty sure my buddy found it at Walmart and gave me that. I don't know what's worse. That's definitely worse than Broncos. Broncos kind of rolls off the tongue, which is like all the AFC West rivals. Like if they don't call the Broncos the Bonkos when they're fucking losing or playing bad, they're not doing their job as fans.
No, Broncos sounds like they like any given Sunday team that couldn't get the NFL license. Colorado Springs Broncos.
The Broncos.
High Plains Broncos.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Middle America.
Somewhere. Wyoming team. Yeah, big Broncos news though. And Chad, I'm excited to hear your take on this because I know it's been stirring a little bit of controversy among basically everyone who's weighed in, but the WuanJames opt-out. I have mixed emotions. I mean, emotions is strong. Like I don't feel personally attacked by any of this.
Will sent me a heartfelt email after the news conveying his emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It took me a while to do some soul searching. But I had a mixed reaction to it. I think we've all heard the story now. He signed, at the time, the biggest contract ever for a right tackle before the 2019 season. Ended up playing something like 3 games.
63 snaps.
Yeah, 63 snaps. I don't know. I could probably break out a calculator, but essentially they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per snap. I will add, though,
He's
that
the Wolf of
Drew
Wall
Lock,
Street of the NFL.
absolutely. I was going to say Drew Lock played pretty well without him at the end. I think he played for like half of that Texans game.
Yeah, first
But
half.
he did fine. Yeah, he did fine without WuanJames. Either way, after missing 13 games plus last season, proving that he's not really, the contract's not looking great already. Plus, you have some comments thrown in from inside the organization, which rarely happens with this team. They're pretty buttoned up. They're pretty disciplined, which tells me that they're trying to send a message to him, light a little fire. After all that, opts out a few days before training camp, maybe like Monday. The deadline was today. What do you think about all this?
I think someone said this to me on Twitter in a DM today that said it best, that you can never trust a man with no eyebrows. And I think that's, I don't know, what do they call it? Alopecia or something? I don't know what it's called, but it made me laugh. I mean, honestly,
Don't know what they're thinking.
He collected $17 million in the calendar year of 2019, and he played 63 snaps. Now, that knee injury that he suffered in week 1, that was just a sprain. The Broncos worked him back. It took 7 weeks. It's usually a 4 to 6 week injury. 7 weeks. They get him back on the field week 8 on the road at the Colts. He lasts not even 30 snaps. And no, I think it was like 10 snaps, both in the first game and week 8. In that game, he claims he partially tore the meniscus in his knee. And that from there, it was just a complete shit show of the Denver Broncos just trying to rush him back onto the field. Well, finally, he obliges, which if you really did have a torn meniscus, and that's true, I question why you would then put yourself out there on the field, allow the team to put you out on the field. But he plays that first half in Houston. It's the most prolific offensive performance the Broncos have had since, I don't know, probably that one Trevor Siemian game on the road where he threw like 4 touchdowns in Cincinnati. Like, either way, another 30 snaps or so, and then he's done. He says his knee is buckling on him. Honestly, if he wouldn't have had such a disappearing act last year, I don't think this would have necessarily hit as sour a note for fans and probably even with the team as it did. But the fact that he was a no-show last year and then just decides to opt out when, he's an elite level athlete. Like, he's a world-class athlete. He's not really in the high-risk category for this thing that everybody's worried about. I wasn't surprised. It's WuanJames. Vic Fangio was wondering in December. He was talking about it publicly. Like, Juwan needs to figure out where his heart is. He needs to get his mind right. He needs to get his body right. And then he rebuts that through Nikki Jabala of The Athletic late. He says that was a false narrative that was painted on me. Just some weird passive-aggressive, I don't know. Broncos definitely swung and missed on this. Like, he could come back next year, make that $10 million bucks, start all 16 games, make it to a Pro Bowl, and prove us all wrong. But if the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, I think we probably already have our answer.
Brandon?
Yeah. I heard Orlando Franklin talk about it, and since he was also an offensive lineman, I think he's probably got a pretty good idea of what playing through those kind of injuries are. And I think he said he had a similar like meniscus thing. Might have even been also partially torn. And he basically said you can play through it. He said the question is like your pain tolerance. Mm-hmm. And if it's partially torn, once you like wrap it up and put a brace on it, you can go out there and play on it. It's more just a matter of will as a person in that position. He was like, kind of said what Chad said in that, like, you're getting paid to play through some of that stuff, which I get. For me, with players in injuries, since like that's something only really they can know, and the team doctors and then their doctors, depending on how good your team doctors actually are. Like, I try not to look too much into it because I feel like I've made the mistakes of criticizing guys for injuries before, and it always backfires. But, I don't know. In terms of, like, money and the Broncos at the cursed right tackle position, the curse it continues. Like they have not been able to, from Schofield to Menelik Watson to overpaying for like they pay, like even when they paid all that money for him, he was just the best available right tackle coming out of Miami. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you're getting Joe Thomas and then Joe Thomas is, hurt on you or whatever. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it seems like he probably could have played this year. And I say that as somebody who only wants the best for my interest as a fan watching the game.
I think like pain tolerance has a lot to do with your want to, right? Like if my dad, when I'm 14 years old and he tells me go out and dig this ditch, we're putting in some sprinklers, and I get quickly like a, gash on my hand, all of a sudden that hurts really bad because I don't want to be out here, dude. Like I can't handle this. Dad, get me out of here because I don't care. It's not important to me. Now I'm not necessarily accusing WuanJames of not having heart. I'm not accusing him of not caring about.
What if we found out he physically doesn't have a heart?
Yeah, then I think
go with the eyebrows.
Get that heartless bastard out of here.
Is it worse? Like, does that make you more susceptible to COVID if you literally don't have a heart?
Probably. That's got to be. That's got to make you at risk.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I know what Chad's saying
reputation, though.
He does, yeah. No, that's true.
No, yeah, he doesn't.
Before he came to Denver.
He's not building a great reputation here.
I was looking at his Wikipedia. It's like he suffered a pulled hamstring in 2017 in Miami and missed like half the season.
Yeah. He's an injury milker. Yeah. That's his reputation.
That's a good example because I'm pretty sure Evan Mathis played almost the entire season for the Broncos on the offensive line with a really bad hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. Like, I think they said like his whole leg was just black and blue, like almost the entire season, and nobody knew. Like he injured it week 2 and just toughed it out. And that was they won the Super Bowl, and he was a key factor in that, is like an old dude on the line, but you knew he was going to play pretty well every week and show up. And that's like, you have to find that for the offensive line. And the Broncos haven't been able to do that. Like if the guy can stay healthy, he's terrible at right tackle. That's just, they've been their luck. So I would assume that whatever they're doing to evaluate it, they have to change.
I mean, even their drafting, they can't figure it out even on the draft side because, I mean, Bowles, that's a different animal. He's left tackle. But Tyson Brilo was a swing and a miss. Michael Schofield, you can argue they got their money's worth as a third-round pick because he did play well down the stretch in 2015 and started on a Super Bowl champion roster or, game day roster for the Super Bowl at right tackle. But still, he was a categorical disappointment for the majority of his time in Denver. Orlando Franklin was probably honestly the best homegrown, handpicked right tackle the Broncos have had in the Elway era. Yeah. I mean,
he got let him go
the Super Bowl 48, but still, he was legit for 3 years.
Basically, if the Broncos offensive lineman isn't working out, they go to San Diego /LA and play a couple years pretty decent football there. Like
they end up in like Houston. That's the only other option.
Schofield went to guard and played like decent football there this last year for him.
Doesn't make sense. I was at that game where he gave up something like 15 sacks to Khalil Mack.
On one play. It was so weird.
No, on one play. But I will say that I think quarterback play obviously has a ton to do with offensive line play.
Yeah.
And I think we're all going to have to reevaluate things with the full season of not Joe Flacco under center.
Yeah. If Elijah Wilkinson can hang out there with Drew Lock, I think he'll be serviceable. And he's like he's the kind of guy who wants to be out there, giving it
heart's not a question.
All. Yeah. He definitely has a heart, according to doctors.
Did you guys see that Drew Lock, for quarterbacks who had at least 150 dropbacks last year, Drew Lock was the hardest quarterback in the NFL to sack in terms of when he did get sacked, it was I can't believe I remember this, 4.30 seconds from the snap till the time he got sacked, which led all NFL quarterbacks with at least 150 snaps. So That tells me that, and there were other metrics that pointed to his ability to, I don't know if it was pre-snap, recognizing the pressure, or just pocket feel, or his,
it's all of that.
all of it. But that gives me at least some encouragement that whether it's Wilkinson, whether it's they move Dalton Reisner over there, if they go sign Cordy Glenn, whatever they end up doing, that Drew Lock can kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He is a little bit more elusive. And it was just like, so you went from Flacco to Brandon Allen, and then like even Brandon Allen, you're like, okay, at least this guy can get out of the pocket, maybe make something happen with his legs. But after a couple games, you're like, okay, we know where this is going to go. And then you get Drew Lock, who's, raw rookie. You don't know what to expect. And just seeing him not take a sack sometimes, you're like, okay. Yeah. He's a 15-year starter here, baby. Like that's what Flacco did. That's what Case Keenum did. Like I thought Case Keenum was going to be more slippery, and he'd run too far back and then put himself out of the play. Like it's been a lot of frustration at that QB position.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we just had, I don't know what it was, but we've just been beaten down so badly since 2015 in terms of quarterback play that just like 5 pretty decent games out of a young player has given us just like
faith,
has gotten us through the longest winter in human history. But hey, who's going to complain about that?
Think about that entire 2019 season's bizarre for the Broncos in that you have that sort of feeling with Drew Lock, and then earlier in the season those horrible losses on those crazy plays at the end of the game, but also they shut out the Titans completely.
Yeah.
They held the Titans to 0 points and forced the switch to Tannehill, which then changed the Titans' trajectory for forever. Like it's just like
welcome Tennessee.
Yeah. Titans fans should be sending us, Patreon and Super Chat money every day.
Yeah, to us. Correct. The last thing I'll say on the WuanJames matter before we dig into some other stuff is the NBA. I know you guys aren't big basketball heads, but in their collective bargaining agreement in like the mid 2010s, they've gotten rid of it, but they had a clause called the amnesty clause, which so as long as the current CBA runs, which is 7 years in the NBA, an NBA franchise gets basically one like get out of jail free card with a massive swing and miss contract. And I know if that was a thing in the NFL, and maybe it should be, it'd be a lot more fun because you still pay the player, but it just comes off the books. You don't have to, it doesn't affect the salary.
So it's good for all the teams that have money, basically.
Yes.
Right?
If you have capital, then it's
and if the player
fine.
still gets paid, the NFLPA wouldn't imagine voice too much of a complaint.
No, that would be something like Jerry Jones would have done for sure. You would know like the Jacksonville Jaguars just never would have the money to be able to do it.
No, it's like if we're paying you this money, you're going to be working like at a snack bar or something.
You'll be in concessions this weekend.
Yeah, we're getting our money's worth one way or another. But even if this is like year one of the CBA, I genuinely think the moment WuanJames had opted out, if that was an option, they would have pulled the trigger immediately and gotten that contract.
I don't doubt that. Although his money comes off this year's salary cap, right?
It does.
Yes.
So it gives him flexibility to – that's the thing. There's not like a lot of options out there. Those right tackles don't just hang around looking for work.
No. That's the thing is like you shouldn't invest in one in free agency. That's the problem because if a team has one, they're not going to let them breach free agency. They're going to re-sign them. They're really, really hard to find. They're almost like quarterbacks. There's
like 3 legit – when I say legit, and none of them are ideal, but in terms of viable potential options, there's 3. You got Cordy Glenn, and these are free agents, DeMar Dotson, and then 37-year-old Donald Penn, who I had to be reminded signed a 1-year deal with Washington last year when Trent Williams, held out and whatnot. Started 15 games, played over 800 snaps. He was one of the worst graded tackles in the NFL per PFF last year. But those are 3 guys that, depending on what they're asking for, like Dotson's probably the one that is the most interesting to me now. Glenn, they're about equal, but if they're willing to take you made about, or you freed up about $4 million by cutting ties with Jeff Hireman. If they're willing to take somewhere in that realm to come in on a 1-year deal, like $4 to $6 million, something like that, I don't know what the hurt would be.
I would find a giant tight end who is a really good blocker and just always line him up on the hip of the right tackle.
I just keep feeding them. Yeah, just keep make them go back for seconds and thirds in the team cafeteria until they're right tackle size. Bring back Dwayne Carswell, something like that.
House.
But the problem is WuanJames, dude. They're locked into him on guaranteed money in 2021 and 2022. Like they could trade him next year, but that's why if you did bring someone in off the street, it's just a short-term Band-Aid. It's a 1-year deal. We're not, trying to fool anybody here. We just need you as a stopgap. Here's some money.
Yeah.
Because they're tied into James for at least one more year minimum.
Yeah. I mean, it might work out, like, if Wilkinson plays well in that role all year, or they just, like, you can pay James, but you just have to keep drafting right tackles until you find, like, it doesn't matter if you're trying to figure out your right tackle and you're starting him ahead of James, like, because you're not wasting a bunch of money in a rookie. It's just like, okay, we know he's going to be out of here in 2 years. Basically, we have 2 years to find his replacement.
Yeah.
But hopefully with a good quarterback, you're not looking at that glaring issue as much, right? Like, as long as it's a decent offensive lineman, you're going to be fine. The offensive lines look really bad when you have bad quarterback play. And that's just been the story from Simeon to Lynch to Osweiler to all these guys. Most teams, I feel like, just have like a pretty average offensive line. Maybe there's one or two really atrocious offensive lines, and there's one or two elite groups. But most of them are pretty good because your quarterbacks knows, like, when to get rid of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're trotting out the 2019 Jets offensive line, like, it's not going to matter if you have Joe Montana back there. But yeah, we saw it firsthand. Joe Flacco was and is, and good luck because he's playing behind that Jets offensive line too. If he ever gets any snaps,
if he comes in for Darnold, there's a good chance he gets Trevor Simeon injured there. Like,
yeah, we all know about Sam Darnold's immune system too. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, it is a bad recipe for Flacco. Do you think Flacco would play better if he took a walk through the microbe bacteria killing spray? Or do you think that would hurt his game?
That's a great question.
I don't know.
How much microbes do you need to be better? Or how many? Is it many or much?
In the case of Joe Flacco, I don't know if there's enough microbes floating around on Earth.
Oh, here's something I wanted to bring up that we can talk about. Okay, so, Von Miller went all out about, being a leader and ready to do everything he can to right the team. And I don't doubt that. Like, I love hearing, like, Von be positive and excited. And obviously there's only so much you can do from that position on defense, right? So today I was, like, trying to find that clip, and I just typed in, like, Von Miller leader. 2019, Von Miller says he's going to take a bigger role as leadership. 2018, Von Miller says he's ready for bigger role as leader. I'm like, I knew that sounded familiar. He says this every year. And I watched, like, one of the clips. I'm like, there's something a little bit different about this one in terms of, I think, like, his own intensity. But I think the problem, it goes back to quarterbacks, where the media is looking for somebody to be that guy because they know the quarterback's not it. So, Von's the best player after your quarterback. So every year he's just been like, yeah, I'm going to try to do more.
He's not really that guy. He's not really DeMarcus Ware. He's not he's got the knowledge, but I don't think he really is all that naturally suited to being here, let me take you under my wing guy. Like, if people come to Von, he's gonna break it down. He's gonna answer questions, but he's not a rah-rah guy per se. And he's not like that, leader that you want to run through a wall. Like, even Dalton Reisner going into his second year, like, if he said to me, follow me, we're going through this wall, like, I'm following him, dude. Like, he gets me excited. Like, I could believe in that guy. Vaughn's more like lead by example. Watch, I'm going to go out there and produce on the field and just kind of, pick this up by osmosis, you dumbasses. Here we go.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen.
And it's also like, as an edge rusher, you're not controlling the defense when you're out there. You're not like moving guys around like you might be if you're a like a linebacker bringing in the plays or calling shit out. Like, you're just focused on doing one of two things or three. You're rushing, you're playing the run, or maybe you're dropping into coverage. Like, those are the only three things you're thinking about. So it's not even that he's a defense. It's just that position is a weird one to try to lead people during a game. Right. But I know.
Yeah, there's also this weird misnomer that like the best players also have to be these great leaders, which it just isn't true. Like, you can be. You think Randy Moss, who's like probably the second best wide receiver of all time, was a great leader? No, and I'm not saying like Von Miller's like a nuisance either, like Randy Moss.
No.
You don't have to like do both. Some guys are just really, really good players, and then you throw in a guy like Drew Lock, and Drew Lock, I don't know if he's like a rah guy, but he's one of those guys that's just like so cool that he like sets the demeanor of everyone in the huddle too. It's like, well, our leader's cool. Like, we're cool. We're gonna go down. We're gonna score. It's like. It's like Joe Montana just pointing out John Candy in the crowd at the Super Bowl before every single play on that drive. I imagine that's how he did it. Yeah, it's like just before. It's like John Candy is currently in the third row. Just next play. John Candy he's made it to the fifth row. By the way, like of course you can spot John Candy in the crowd. He's like 400 pounds.
God rest his soul.
What's funny, I don't know if I should say because it's not family-friendly language, but I was reading
I would argue you should say it.
I was reading this book on Bill Walsh, and it quotes something that Joe Montana, who I always thought was a relatively smart quarterback, he said, I want to say it was the rivalry that the Niners had at the time in the 80s with the Giants, and he got into it with somebody on the field, and he called them stupid, dumb MFers. And I hear stupid. I've got children just out this door.
It's
so
fine.
I gotta be careful what I say.
It's fine.
But it's not the greatest syntax, as anyone who's put pen to paper knows, and not really good grammar either. And I'm like, stupid, dumb, mother truckers. Joe Montana, I really did think he was a little bit sharper than that.
Depends where you put the comma.
Stupid.
I guess.
Don't ask Will what he thinks of my intelligence, Chad. I'll tell you that.
Nah.
I
didn't say intelligence. I just said literacy.
Yes.
Separate.
Like today was an episode that Will did more of the writing on than I did. And I'm reading it while I'm shooting the episode. I'm like, oh, fuck. I didn't dumb down some of these sentences.
I don't know, dude. I think you shouldn't sell yourself short, Brandon, because I remember that one article you published way back in the day. Remember you actually wrote an article?
Oh yeah, you had me write one.
And it was good, dude. You got some solid prose game, dude. You got some solid writing skills.
When in doubt, I just throw out a lot of commas.
There you go.
There's no rules for commas. No rules.
Yeah.
There's literally, there are no rules for commas.
I put commas at the beginning of the sentence before a word even.
Comma.
It's like how Christopher Walken speaks. Just commas everywhere. Doesn't matter.
All right. Who do you think?
Let's talk some football here.
Who do you think's the best quarterback who is the worst leader?
Oh man. That's a great question.
Like you think of Cutler right away.
Yes.
But like there's got to be another guy out there who is just a shitty leader but was pretty good. That's almost like a good episode to do. That
would be like a great episode of like NFL Top 10. Although I don't know if there's 10 of them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are there? I'm just like trying to go back and think of like NFL MVPs.
I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is much of a leader that his locker room
that's
listens
that's
to.
A good call.
That's a good answer. That's a very good answer. What did you guys think about that? Like
interview?
Cause he did that thing with Kyle Brandt, and like basically he's kind of like he's not really skirting the elephant in the room with the whole Jordan Love thing, and he's kind of just like speaking his mind, which we appreciate, like just the being candid about those things. But like I don't know if it sits particularly well within the organization, but at the same time, he's Aaron Rodgers. He can say whatever he wants. It's not going to get in trouble.
I think he just says it so like smoothly casual that I'm like, okay, I still like this guy.
He sees the writing on the wall, dude. He was Jordan Love. He was the guy that came in at the unforeseen first round pick to challenge a future Hall of Fame entrenched incumbent, and he just knows which way the wind blows, dude. He knows it's only a short matter of time. My biggest fear is that he ends up forcing his way out of Green Bay sooner than later and lands with Belichick or something and goes on to play for another 5 years. And
I would actually root for that scenario.
Rodgers and Belichick.
Give me that. Let me tarnish that Brady legacy. Let me see Brady's legacy tarnished in front of my eyes. What I also learned from that thing, well, it wasn't that thing, but it was shortly after when Kyle Brandt tweeted that something about, he said like, it seems like media members are almost rooting for football not to happen. I think we learned that Kyle Brandt might not be the most popular guy in sports media.
Not anymore. That's for dang sure.
I like him. Like I really like.
I don't mind Kyle Brandt, but I'm saying like he caught a ton of flack for that.
No, he did. I didn't entirely disagree with him. Is the thing. I know like a lot of people are like there's just a bunch of doomers out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they necessarily want it to be canceled. Like I don't think they're like rooting for it actively, but I think there's an element of like, I told you so.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a ton of those people out there. It's weird. It's
blue check marks on Twitter essentially is who we're talking about. Blue check.
Yeah. I did a bit about Jerry Jones not wanting to pay players so he could buy a gold toilet for his yacht, and just went on like this insane, stupid Jerry Jones like voice and rant, like really making not like a good point. And there was a couple people like, this is when you get too political. Like it's funny. I was like, how is that part of it political?
Judas Priest.
Like, man.
Talking about shitting on your gold toilet in your yacht. I don't know how that is about politics, but
yeah, I got a lot of flack like that during the shutdown, just because I was taking like a slightly above average optimistic view of what the future could hold for the NFL, what the future could hold. I mean, I can't even tell, like, honestly, dude, I would get emails from listeners of the Huddle Up podcast that would vociferously tell me, first of all, I've never once mentioned Donald Trump as like I'm a supporter of Donald Trump. I've never praised Donald Trump. But because I was being optimistic about the Rona in terms of, look, we got time. Hopefully by the time you get through the summer, things have calmed down. Like these are the type of things I'm saying. It's not like I'm out there pounding the table saying, denying science or anything like that. I would get these emails from people that were like, you are being so blind that you're actually risking the health of your listeners. Like you are. And I was, whoa, dude. Like I had to just take a step back and go, well, there's just some weird ass people out there, dude.
Well, I like to imagine the guy who decides how he's going to approach safety based on listening to your show. Like he's making his life decisions based on what he heard Chad say.
Right. Yeah. Some Broncos football podcast on YouTube. Chad said, you know what? Things could be okay by September. So I'm going to go ahead and just,
come December, I'm going to start licking fucking toilet seats again.
I'm not going to wash my hands.
Jerry Jones gold toilet seat too. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I think I was called irresponsible at least a dozen times by people, and it was just weird.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like a weird brew of people just being frustrated about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was just the one thing that set somebody off that day. And like that's like Twitter was like that before, but right now where everybody's stuck at home or people are in really shitty situations, it's always just like right
magnified
before a boil, and you don't know what's gonna.
Yeah, like why do you think like we get all these like this the so-called Karens or like the public freakout videos? Like why does it feel like there's so many of them now? It's just because like people are just like constantly on edge. Like I feel that too. Like when I get in my car and like I see someone's like like mildly tailgating me, I'm just like, guy.
Death.
Doesn't he know that I had like that a stressful week? Come on.
I had to drive today, and I was like, I don't miss this. I don't miss this.
No. It's just such a bizarre state of affairs, and I agree with you, Chad. Like I've tried generally to be optimistic about this, especially regarding the football season, because I know nothing else. I do not know the season of fall without football.
Yeah.
And to be honest, those 4 months without my favorite game, they scare me.
Well, as content creators, like, bro, we've been like grasping at straws for guys who cover football and create content around football. Like, thank God we had the draft. Thank God we had free agency. But I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like about 2 weeks about the time when you would normally have rookie minicamp but there was nothing, fans just kind of went, screw it, dude. I don't even care anymore. I can't imagine going through this in like September, October, November to no football. Like I would get bored myself. Like I would get sick of doing this job. So do I have a vested interest? Do I have my own self-interest in the NFL happening? Yes. But that's why I try to view it, I guess, if I'm being honest, through an optimistic lens. I want it to happen. And I think where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that happen. And, Brittany Boland, for what it's worth, she showed some extreme competence, dude, with that plan to, slap together, or it's a 4-letter acronym, the IER, the infectious disease response plan, or whatever it is. It's pretty insane how comprehensive and painstaking that plan is. So I'm gonna maintain that optimistic.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think teams and the league, like I like to shit on them as much as anybody, right? But I think like there's something commendable about all these people trying to do this in a way that is as safe as they can manage, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't work out, but like you can't knock them for trying that. And I think like it was like as soon as like the first shitty thing happened in the MLB, it was everybody's like, see, this is going to fuck up all sports. You're like, hey, well, right now we're learning from one team not taking the stuff seriously and seeing then how that affects other teams.
Yep.
So maybe that's actually something the NFL can learn from. And all the guys who are showing up to training camps and to play right now, they all really want to be there because they have a pass not to be right now. So like, I think with those kind of intentions, you can make something happen, and like they shouldn't be shit on for trying to do it. And anybody who doesn't want to do it, like I get that too. It's like people's families you're talking about, like let them make those personal decisions for themselves and move on.
Yeah, I mean, this might come off as a take here, but given all the precautions that the NFL, is taking, an NFL facility might be like one of the safest public, or not public, but just like populated environments you can enter right now. What happens in like week 2 when the NFL's running smoothly and WuanJames gets photographed at a bar without a mask on? It's gonna be crazy. Like I don't know. Like I can't say this because every franchise is gonna have their own protocol, essentially, or not protocol, but their own standards. And there's such a disparity in like franchise quality between like a team like the Broncos, who are on the higher end, and then the Washington Bleepskins, who. But it just leads me to believe like there's teams that are going to do it the right way, and if it so happens that there's an outbreak, it's going to be the NFL's equivalent of the Miami Marlins, and of course I'm talking about the Washington football team there, but I don't know.
So-
I have a generally optimistic view now that the MLB's gotten it together, I think, knock on wood. And the NBA has been running as smoothly as it possibly could have. Different circumstance, but still, it's not easy.
No, they can do it. You're just going to expect there's going to be speed bumps along the way.
Yeah.
Or hurdles.
They have the NFL.
Speed bumps with hurdles on them.
I'm trying to think of exactly what they're calling it, but they have this, I think it's just a high-risk behavior that players this year, it's an amendment to the new CBA.
Yeah.
And basically any social situation they put themselves in outside of their team facilities, any indoor social situation in which they expose themselves to 15 or more people they don't know, that includes church, that includes nightclubs, concerts, bars, whatever, they're subject to extreme sanction, whether it be fine, whether it be outright release, whether it be losing. There are actual monetary ramifications if they have guaranteed money on their contract and they're busted doing high-risk behavior. The team has the prerogative to come down, drop the hammer hard on them. I don't know how much they'll use that, but hopefully it's more carrot rather than stick. But the stick does exist that got negotiated between the NFLPA and the NFL.
So let's do a really quick segment here, and hopefully you guys put some thought into this. I put about 45 seconds of thought into it, so roughly around there. But I want to go around, and this is a really weird season, obviously, so it lends itself to getting a little bold. So I want, starting with you, Chad, you're the guest. You'll go first. I want a bold prediction about the 2020 NFL season. Could be any team, on the field, off the field, don't care. Football related, football adjacent, whatever.
Well, I think it's definitely going to come off as orange colored glasses. I'll keep it within my realm. I'll keep it within my sphere in the Broncos. I took some flack for this on Twitter, that I think the floor of this team is 9-7. Now, this was me saying this before seeing anything on how this team is coming together at all. This was before I knew there would be no preseason. This is before I really knew what the amendments would do of the CBA to affect training camp. But still, I usually kind of make a way too early prediction, and then right on the doorstep of the regular season, another prediction based on how we've kind of seen the team take shape. 9-7 as a floor, maybe that's a little too optimistic in terms of a floor. But if they were able to go 7-9, and you got to remember, in Week 13, they walked into Week 13 with a grand total of 3 wins between Joe Flacco and Brandon Allen. They could scrape together 3 wins. And Drew Lock, combined with some of the defensive additions they made, combined with all the weapons they got, I think this is a team that when the chips are down, they're going to find a way to – last year, how many games was it? 4 that they lost on the final possession. Single score games that if it falls just a little hair this way, they could come out with a win instead of a loss because of those fine margins and some of the other things. I think this is a team that can really. I think double-digit wins is. It might sound like a bold prediction for a team that now has 3 consecutive losing seasons and only won 7 games, but I just like what they're cooking up here. I think the stars have finally aligned coaching-wise too. Again, Pat Shurmur, Mike Shula. They are crossing – Drew Lock is crossing paths with those dudes at literally the perfect time in his career. Like Rich Scangarello, he was a solid guy. He was a great teacher. But as a play caller, he's not a guy that's going to put your offense and your quarterback in a position to kind of go to that next level. Pat Shurmur is, and Mike Shula as a coach is as well. So – I think 9-7 as a floor. I'm probably just going to stick to it out of pride, but I predicted officially 11-5 for the Broncos this year. Going through the schedule, that's not just me going 11-5. Sounds good. We'll see how it shakes out, though.
That was very modest, bold prediction, but I like it. I'm going to agree with it.
I like it too. Brandon, you got something?
Off the field, Antonio Brown's rap album Himothy wins a Grammy. On the field, I think Antonio Brown plays football this season and makes some team quite a bit better.
For the Seahawks?
Maybe. I think as soon as if that trial, that civil suit ends in his favor, he will be on a team within a week, and I think he's going to play really well wherever he goes. It's not going to be the Buccaneers. If you go, it's not going to be there. But that would be a bold prediction because everything I believe says the opposite of that. But I think it's something with AB.
Okay. I like that.
What's yours?
That was a fairly bold prediction. Mine's a little more vague, but I think my reasoning behind it is that things are so strange and the NFL season is going to be so fluid and there's going to be a lot of things that come out of nowhere, players coming and going throughout the season. I think we're going to see a team that's never won the Super Bowl win the Super Bowl this year.
Ooh.
I think a team like – I'll give you three options. The Vikings, the Texans, or the Falcons.
Mm.
Oh.
I think you might see something like Falcons-Texans in the Super Bowl.
I almost wrote like a paragraph about how I thought Matt Ryan was going to finish as the statistical leader of all of the AFC South quarterbacks or NFC South quarterbacks, so that he's going to play better than Brady and Breeze and get the Falcons to finish first in that division. So that would kind of fall in line with that.
You never know when Matt Ryan's going to have just a stud Pro Bowl caliber prolific season. Like it kind of comes out of nowhere. He's steady, and then every once in a while, man, he has one of those big seasons.
I mean, I feel like it's just like whether the team, like he the last few years, like he's had those seasons. Like especially last year, he had
just
that
whether
season.
or not he gets help from the defense.
Whether the team is playing even mildly well around him. But yeah, I think something like that, just like a random team. Comes out of nowhere. That or the Chiefs. Probably just going to be the Chiefs. That's the silver lining if the season gets canceled. It's just a year where the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl, most likely. So on that depressing note, Chad, thank you for coming on. We'll have to do it again, but that was really fun.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always fun to catch up and talk with you, dude. So anytime. And Will, we had Brandon on a couple months on the pod. We got to get you on the podcast. Which used to be your podcast, by the way.
It used to be I'm reclaiming my old
That's
space.
Right. But yeah, dude. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a blast as always.
Yeah.
It's always good to laugh. So thank you.
You guys
Thanks for coming on, Chad.
You guys are on 4 days a week.
So we pride ourselves at MHH of having a live stream podcast 7 days a week, but Huddle Up's only 4 of those days, and then the other guys have their shows. But we go Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Zach Kelderman and I.
Dang, dog.
Nice. Check it out, guys. They have a good show. It's so much tighter than ours.
They got more practice. They do more a week.
Yeah. They're 100 times more professional, if that's your thing.
There's something to be said for reps.
Yeah.
Reps.
They're the Joe Thomases, and we are the WuanJames podcast frequency.
I think that ties it together pretty well.
Full circle. All right. See you later, Chad.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good night.